Hi there, everybody. We have a gorgeous new moon in Aries on April 17th, and that just so happens to be my birthday. How lucky. I see this as a brilliant portal into our new selves, and I see this as a portal going into the new earth frequencies. And Aries energy is blunt, it's rude. So if we're holding on to any past baggage that can't go with us through this portal, it's gonna get very loud. And it's gonna say, hey, we need to let go of this stuff right now because this new moon is on Chiron. And, we've been working through these sensitivities, these wounds, and whatever area Chiron has been for you. So it's just gonna be like, let's leave that stuff behind. We've been working through that. You should be integrating this by now. It's time, because it's also in square with Pluto and Aquarius. Not in its height orb, but enough to feel it. So there's a lot of pressure in releasing. I see it as, you're going through TSA to get on a plane, and you can't bring certain things on with you in your luggage, your carry-on bags. They're gonna say, leave that behind. You can't get on this plane if you're gonna bring that with you. And that's the energy that this is kind of with us. It's like, you can't bring this with you going forward. If you do, you're gonna feel it. You're gonna feel that heaviness. You're gonna feel that irritation. Because Aries, we have a huge pileup of planets entering Aries right now. And unlike we've ever seen it before, it's a beautiful, new, transformative energy that is so brilliant, so beautiful. But if you don't know how to handle it, if you've been, holding on to past patterns that are not the best for you and you know it, it's like, sticking your hand in a thing of fire ants or boiling water. It's a very awakening energy, especially with Uranus entering Gemini on the 25th. This is new energy. I've been looking forward to this new moon for months. This is when our lives really take off. But it's gonna come with, some punches if we've been, going back to old things that aren't the best for us. But if we're really choosing the new each time, we're really gonna see some rapid success coming online. I totally believe that with everything that I'm seeing. I do think that there can be, it's fast moving. It's very fast paced. So even though everything's moving really fast, I think it's important for you to really slow down right now, to maintain this energy. There's all this newness that's available to you, but in order to master it, you need to keep grounded and emotionally regulated. So find stillness every single day, because it might feel like, well, I'm gonna miss out on this opportunity. I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this. It's very fast paced, but you're gonna get more out of it the more that you slow down. Because I know that a lot of you have been in some type of stagnancy. You're just waiting for your life to happen, or trying to get everything together so that around this time you can move forward. And it is very much, yeah, let's move forward, but you need to approach it with more discipline, because Saturn's in Aries, and all this Aries stellium is passing over Saturn, and Saturn with Neptune, they're reality checks. Okay, they're reality checks. So can we be disciplined while also paving the way? We're in a new frequency. We're in a new land of expansion, unlike we've ever seen it before. So don't try to repeat past situations thinking that you're going to get the same results, because you're not. If you know that there's certain people that you need to leave behind, leave them behind. If there's certain situations that it's time to let go of it. I really see, as each of these planets have been passing over Saturn, it's been an initiation point. It's been a reality check to some capacity. So really embrace this energy that's with us right now. Embrace this newness, but maintain a level of groundedness throughout it and find stillness. You know, I'm just really seeing that the more that we're rooted and we're grounded and we're going about things in a calm, disciplined manner, the faster that we're going to see our success, rather than, you know, the more that we feel like, I need to take this on, I need to take this on, I need to take this on, I'm going to react to this situation, I'm going to react to that situation. We get out of our bodies, this energy is going to eat you alive. It's going to burn you out real quick. So how can you be the leader and the CEO in your own life? Because it's totally that energy. It's totally that energy. We might feel restrictions right now that feel very limiting in nature, to some capacity, and we're going to want to keep like pushing through. But just observe these restrictions that are coming up, or observe these setbacks. You know, what do you need to release right now? Do you need to sit in more stillness before, you know, you move on and accelerate? Or is it your time? Is it your time? Everybody's kind of going at their own paces, but reality is speeding up. So you can listen to this for your rising sun and moon. I have the timestamps down below, and I hope that you enjoy. All right, Aries, this is a life-changing new moon for us, and over the next 6 months, our reality is not going to look the same as it does right now in this very moment. This new moon is very personal to me because it does fall on my birthday, and I've been looking forward to this new moon for months. This is a life-changing new moon for us. We are going to go through so many significant shifts where they might be uncomfortable in the moment, but 6 months from now, you're going to look back at it and you're going to realize, wow, my life looks so significantly different. I think with this new moon, some of you can be, you know, changing your lives significantly and really taking leaps of faith that you never thought that you would be able to do. Maybe some of you have lacked some sense of confidence in the past, and you're really being asked to stand strong in your own power and really bring forth that Aries energy within you. Some of you could be making significant moves right now. That can be resonant. It just feels like there is a sense of newness to your physical environment. Some of you can also be making improvements and changes within your own physical body as well. But I would caution you to, you know, be aware of your surroundings during these periods of times, because you're going to see that with this Aries season, there can people who are not in their awareness can be a little chaotic in nature and a little ungrounded. So you don't want to engage in any type of physical fights. I don't think any time, of course, but especially right now, because all this Aries energy is literally in an area of your physical body, of your physical location. So really take care of your body right now, okay? And if you're feeling called to cutting your hair, getting a tattoo, doing something new, allow that newness to come in, okay? I think some of you will really be changing and shifting your sense of identity right now. I think some of you could also be, you know, getting more picky about who you're friends with. Some of you could be making significant cutoffs with other individuals that you've surrounded yourself with. Maybe you're distancing yourself from your community. Maybe you might find that you want more alone time over the next 6 months, and I highly advocate for that. I think that there can definitely be some conflict in your relationships, maybe, or in the family. Maybe there's some sensitivities or vulnerabilities that are going to be addressed during that period of time where you're, you know, talking through maybe some family dynamic things, or vulnerabilities in your personal relationships, opening up about your emotional world. Maybe some of you could also have some, you know, troubles around your home life and your living situation. I definitely think that that has been significant for some of you, where you feel like you're focusing more on getting your home life in order, getting your personal life in order, and maybe that's impacted your career or your ability to perform, you know, but you're still working through that process. And some of you might not feel comfortable where you live. You might not feel comfortable in the relationships that you've cultivated, comfortable in your neighborhood, okay? So a lot of you are reestablishing what is you, what is your identity, what do you want going forward, okay? This is a time where you get to completely rebrand. You get to rebrand. Me as an Aries, I'm rebranding. I'm moving across the country. Do I know how it's happening? No, but I'm leaving on the day of this new moon, on my birthday, the 17th, and I'm doing it. Getting rid of all my things, gonna pack just a few things, put it in my car, and I'm gonna drive out west. I'm rebranding, and I feel like that is the vibe, that is the energy for a lot of Aries placements. And so long as, you know, we're doing it from a place of confidence, authenticity, but we're also doing it from a place of, you know, being stable rather than from a place of escapism, I think that it can really work out for us, you know, whatever direction that you're wanting to move in this energy. Maybe it's not a cross-country move for you, but maybe it's, you know, you decide that you want to go try a new sport, or put yourself out there and dating again, or, you know, getting a significant tattoo, or starting a family, or building a new career, starting a business for yourself. There's a lot of newness that is available for you, and I highly encourage you to take it. And then we're going to have that Uranus go into Gemini on the 25th. And I think that that is a period of time where some of you, I just feel like there's this resistance in your home life or with some family members during that period of time. And just like, you know, really from the new moon going forward, I think that there's maybe some logistical things that you're working out with your home life or within family dynamics, where you really feel like it's a me versus them type of mentality, or you feel like you need a lot of space from a certain situation. And I highly encourage you to take the necessary space that you need to take if that's something that you resonate with. There will be the tendency to want to act on your emotional impulses and take things personally with this energy. I mean, all this stellium in Aries, this is a chaotic, fast-moving energy, and it's going to want you to take the bait. But since Saturn's in our sign, we really need to know that we're going to get reality checks if we're out of line and we're not stepping into that proper Aries leadership and authority role. So go about some of these things with more patience and more empathy. And if you know that you're about to emotionally react to something, take a step back and breathe through it and regulate your emotional world. That's going to be so significant for you. And as Uranus goes into Gemini and sits on Venus, I see for some of you, maybe there's new love available for you if you've been wanting that, if you've been manifesting that. I see maybe there's deeper conversations that come out of nowhere where you find yourself in more harmony with people around you that you haven't been with in a while. For some of you, you know, it could be siblings. Maybe there's significant siblings in your life that you reconnect with, and your relationship strengthens and grows as a result, or a significant relative, or even a neighbor. But I see a lot of new love coming in, new connection coming in for everybody really around this Uranus and Gemini transition. And it doesn't have to be just romantic love. I think it's like either we're jumping into new connections, meeting new people who are really in alignment with us, and that's an expansive experience, or you're renewing connections that you already have, talking through things and allowing those dynamics to shift and change. And yeah, I just think that that's really beautiful. And if you work in social media, I also see maybe you getting more money and income through that as well. Yeah. And if you've been worried about a housing situation, I also see that moving quite quickly. This is a very fast moving energy. So this, as Aries placement, so long as we are, you know, going at things from a disciplined way and, you know, being in our center and doing the work, I think that this is a really brilliant energy that's coming with us through this new moon portal. Okay, so just hold your center, practice that emotional regulation, and don't let outside circumstances trigger you right now, okay? All right, Taurus. With this new moon, it does feel like some of you might want to take a step back or work through some mental health stuff. I feel like some of you could also be in a period of burnout as well, or you want to work on things on the back end where, you know, say you really want to write a book, but you know that you need some time alone in order to do that process. I think over the next 6 months, some of you will be pulled to spend more time by yourself and, you know, maybe take more rest and maybe even heal some stuff that is related to the past. Maybe even grieve some endings, you know, or grieve significant losses that have happened in your life. That's not going to apply to all of you, of course. I also think some of you are learning to let down some walls, if you've built some walls with other individuals, if that's resonant. Some of you can be doing that. And if you have any history with addiction or maybe doing things that aren't the best for you, you could also be, you know, working through those things as well over the next 6 months. If you've been avoidant, if you've been participating in escapism behaviors, you know, that's going to get called out pretty significantly during this period of time. If you've been overlooking certain steps and, you know, not completing your tasks, you've been inconsistent, I do think that that can result in maybe a job loss, or maybe something happens in your marriage where maybe if you've been absent or haven't been showing up properly, that gets addressed. And that's not going to resonate with every single one of you, of course. But have you been prone to escapism? Have you been avoiding certain situations where, you know, if you haven't been super alert or in your awareness, you know, significant situations come to just like wake you up. You know, it's that kind of energy where it's like, hey, if you've been asleep to this, if you've been, you know, avoiding this or pretending this isn't happening, here's a wake-up call right now. You know, it can manifest in that. Or for some of you, maybe you just feel overworked and burnt out in your career or in your public position, or, you know, within your life, and you're like, I have to take some time to myself. So over the next 6 months, you could also be prioritizing more downtime where you're able to get that rest. Because some of you you're very hard workers, and sometimes it's important to establish that downtime for yourself. You know, make that just as important as, you know, your work time, if that's resonant. And I think that significant truths will also surface over the next 6 months. If people have been a little deceptive with you, you're certainly going to be figuring that out, especially around this new moon, because that new moon on Chiron is going to be in square with Jupiter in Cancer in the area of communication. So some of you can be, you know, coming into some conversations where you realize, oh, I guess my boundaries were actually crossed, or oh, I didn't realize like that was the truth of the situation. Can I trust these individuals? Some of you also might, you know, find that you just can't be as quick to react to situations right now, so therefore you could feel like it's easy to take advantage of you. Okay, so really try to hold those boundaries the best that you can throughout this process. I think that there can be confusing conversations, and there can, you know, just learning how to navigate boundaries with others. Maybe you're learning to navigate boundaries with neighbors or relatives or siblings. Maybe you're feeling abandoned, or they're feeling abandoned by you to some capacity. Maybe you're learning to navigate boundaries at work, or, you know, realizing that your mental health is significant, and that sometimes it's okay to call out if you're going through some stuff, even if it's not physically, you know, impacting you. Okay, a lot of this, I've been reading horoscopes for Taurus for almost a year now, and I just feel like some of you could be going through burnout, and it's important to take a step back sometimes. And then we got Uranus going into Gemini on the 25th, and yeah, this is going to be a period of time where I think there could be confrontations that you just might not feel prepared for, or it's going to be a time where you want to, you know, just take a step back and just I feel like brain fog could be significant for some of you. Yeah, brain fog. If you have any Scorpio placements, I think maybe health stuff could be getting in the way. And it's hard for you to communicate or have the energy to really, you know, participate in necessary conversations. So I think it's a time where some of you just might want to go on an extended leave or schedule more downtime for yourself. You know, it just feels like a period of time where you're just kind of taking a step back, and that's completely okay to do. Some of you could be checking yourself into mental health facilities during this period of time, or some of you can be staying in hospitals for a period of time. And I'm not trying to scare anybody, okay? This is already, if you know that this is kind of occurring in your life, and it can really just manifest that you're prioritizing more days off, or taking that sick leave if that's necessary. I just think that there's some things that some of you need to process or just work through that you've been avoiding, and it's time to work through some of that stuff. It's time to sit with that. Some of you, it's time to sit with significant grief, or, you know, deal with the reality of situations, even if you've been delaying that process, because it's important to feel those emotions. It's important to experience those losses, you know, or it's important to, you know, sit with yourself from time to time. That's completely okay. I never advocate for anybody driving under the influence, but you really want to pay attention to this, especially going into late April. Some of you honestly might be dealing with significant addictions in your life, or you might be dealing with family members who are working through those things. And I just would not get in the car if you even had like a beverage, or you've taken anything that can subtly impact your impairment. Or, you know, if you get in the car and one of your friends is driving and they've had something to drink, I just wouldn't risk it with all of this heavy energy happening. I mean, I would never risk it in general, but if you let it slide now and then, this is not the time to let it slide. Okay. Yeah. And then we got Uranus going into Gemini. That's going to be having an area of your chart where you really want to set significant boundaries and stick to your values and your morals, and really value yourself. What is your value? This is also a time where I do feel like new love or new connections can really come in for some of us. And for y'all, I think that if you do work online and you also have Aries placements, I think that you can make more money online right now, especially if you have a following on social media to some capacity. That can certainly come online for you. But I do see like new opportunities to bring in financial resources. Those can come online significantly. You could even meet, you know, a potential romantic partner at work in late April, if that's something that you've been looking into. I know that some of you can be in a period of time where there's a lot of confusion, or maybe lack of boundaries, or you just don't feel like yourself right now, I would communicate whatever's going on with, say you have a boss, or you have somebody significant in your life and you feel like there's a lot of pressure on you to perform right now, but you know that you can't give your 100%. I would communicate that, and I would communicate that I need more downtime right now, or I need to take a sick day right now. I need to focus on my mental health. Can I have a little bit more leeway right here? I feel like that's going to be necessary for some of you, because I think that there's a lot of responsibilities that are placed on some of your shoulders. Some of you could also be dealing, don't get in the car with somebody who's been drinking, and don't be having like one drink and you driving yourself, because this astrology, it does kind of speak of, if you were to get pulled over, there could be consequences, to pay, because also where this new moon is and it's sitting, some people can, be dealing with the law and be in that situation for a while. So really, it's a beautiful time. It's absolutely a beautiful time with new experiences. Maybe I was, focusing a little bit on the heavy stuff, but this new moon is falling in an area of the chart that would indicate that maybe some time alone is going to be coming up for some of you, and processing. And it can be a beautiful time, really. It could be a time where you're really focusing on your work, but maybe you're working on your dream job, maybe you're starting a business and it just requires more focus, and maybe you're burnt out because you're doing both, working a full-time job while also starting your dream business. I'm a Taurus rising, that's kind of what's happening with me. But I think that it can be a really beautiful time where you're really accelerating into your dream life. All right, Gemini, I feel like there's a lot of newness that's coming online for you around the Aries New Moon and over the next 6 months. I think that a lot of situations can be happening really fast and really quick. And if you haven't been focusing on your sense of stability, building up financial reserves for yourself, holding necessary boundaries, getting clear on your value systems, I think that it can feel quite chaotic in nature as we go into that energy. And if you have Taurus placements, you're probably feeling a little burnt out or a little frazzled, and you don't know what to do with all of this energy. It feels like it's hard to contain this energy for some of you. Some of you could also be going through significant transformations in your community or within friendships. And in fact, you might feel like you're growing more distant with certain friends in your life. And that's completely okay. I think some of you also might need to travel out of nowhere. Or let's say that you are staying on a visa in a certain country, there can be sudden events that are occurring around this time or over the next 6 months where you need to travel back home, or you need to leave. Or if you have long-term plans, you have something that you've already been planning for a long time, how the future was going to look, that can change significantly, seemingly overnight, just where this energy is. So, be adaptable and be flexible, but your key to all of this is going to have some type of, security, have some type of inner stability already set in place. Okay, I'm not trying to scare anybody. This is heavy energy. This is really quick moving, chaotic, fast moving energy. And if you know that you have a lot of new stuff that's happening over the next 6 months, get prepared for it. Don't let it catch you off guard, because I feel like some of this energy feels like it's catching you off guard, but maybe there could have been things that were set in place a little bit beforehand that could have made some of these situations a little bit more easy, if you catch my drift. Yeah, and I do think I'd be careful what you say on social media during this period of time as well, because that could expose you to some capacity, or that could impact your income. It could impact where you're living. and it's only, this isn't going to apply to every single one of you. I'm just, telling you everything that's coming up for me as I'm reading it. But I would just practice caution with what you're saying on social media, because things can really get blown out of proportion with this energy, and thus shifting and changing your life significantly as a result. I'm already seeing some examples of these particular things coming up on social media right now. So, try not to be super impulsive. I do think that there will be the tendency to want to get into arguments right now. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't engage. I wouldn't even give it the time of day right now. Obviously, hold your ground and hold your boundaries. But if you're arguing with somebody online, or you're arguing with somebody who's not practicing self-awareness, who's not like in their center, I just wouldn't give it the time of day right now, to be honest with you. And people can be really unpredictable. Yeah, if you haven't been saving up money, or you haven't been keeping consistent or keeping a level of stability for yourself, I just think that there can be tests to that area. So just kind of keep that as your focus at the moment. And we got Uranus and Gemini in April 25th. And I think that that's going to be a period of time where your reality, it just looks like there's a lot of newness coming in for you. And it can be overwhelming at first. Some of you really thrive with all that change, though. Some of you thrive whenever everything, in that ADHD energy, where, you have a lot going on, and, your body's just like, this is totally a time where you want to control that nervous system. You want to regulate that nervous system. You want to go for long walks every morning. I wouldn't be taking any kind of stimulants during this period of time if you can help it. If you're really into caffeine, I would, take it easy. Take it a little easy. Soothe that nervous system to some capacity, because it's a very electric energy. I do see, because Uranus is going in your sign, so if you have planets or angles or placements in the first 5 degrees of Gemini, or in the last 5 degrees of Taurus, you're going to feel it significantly. And it resonates with where this new moon and all this Aries energy is hitting, where it's like significant changes in your own life are going to happen overnight. You're not even expecting some of this to happen. And it doesn't have to be a scary thing. It can be a really beautiful thing. The only thing that I'm seeing is, if it can manifest in a way where it's just like, you're not expecting this. You thought your life was going to go in this direction, but this thing came up, and now I've got to adjust to these changes. It could be a brand new opportunity that just comes up out of nowhere, and you're really excited about it. But new opportunities, they still come up. They still have their things that can be overwhelming, even if it's something like really great. Maybe this energy speaks of, maybe some of you maybe got accepted into a college or a school or a program that you weren't expecting, and maybe you weren't prepared or planning on it, and now you've got to collapse your life so that you can attend that school or attend that program. Maybe that might mean, oh, I'm really excited about that new chapter, but that means like I need to say goodbye to this old chapter, and it's gonna move real fast, because this is actually happening next month, and I wasn't expecting that to actually go through and that to be the case, and I gotta say goodbye to everybody. I gotta sell all these things. I gotta find somebody to take my lease. It doesn't have to manifest just like that, but it's like a newness just like coming in, and you might not be expecting of it, and you've got to adapt quickly. That is really what this energy is about. And if you haven't been building some type of stability for yourself, if you haven't been building up necessary finances for these things that are happening out of left field, you might feel a little unprepared. Okay, that's really where I'm getting at with this. And I mean, if you've been looking into dating, I do see, you know, new things happening for you. Babe, there's a lot of new energy here for you. A lot of new energy. Some of you might get overwhelmed. You might get overwhelmed, but that's all right, okay? So just really regulate that nervous system and make sure that you are properly grounding. All right, Cancer. I feel like a lot of you are going to be facing more responsibilities over the next 6 months. Maybe some of you've gotten promoted, some of you've gotten married, or some of you are, you know, expanding into a new career or life direction. Maybe some of you are choosing to collapse some of that, though. Some of you might decide that it's time to end a significant marriage, or it's time to end a significant career path that you've been in. Maybe some of you feel like there's so much responsibility weighing on your shoulders and you just can't handle it anymore. Maybe there are significant responsibilities that you're ready to release yourself from. Maybe you've realized that you've been placing all of your energy and your time in situations that don't give back as much as you would like. You feel like your essence is slipping away from you. Maybe you don't feel respected or listened to or valued by certain individuals or situations. So it's time for you to take a step back, you know, and find what really lights you up, what really matters for you. Because I see that if you're choosing to keep yourself in significant discomfort or keeping yourself in duties and obligations that you know are not in alignment with you, that's just going to get louder and louder and louder for you. Yeah. Now, some of you could be dealing with the law right now, or dealing with the legal system as well over the next 6 months. Maybe if you are going through with a divorce, or maybe there's situations that have happened at work in regard to an authority figure. Maybe, you know, lawsuits could be filed during this period of time, or, you know, something to that nature. It's not going to apply to every single one of you, of course, but I do think that there can be some situations with some Cancer placements in that regard. I do think that, yeah, some of you could be ending significant contracts that you've had for a really long time. And maybe you've paid off significant debts, or you're being asked to pay off significant debts. Yeah, for sure. But like, you're trying to get justice in certain situations that have impacted your physical being or your physical reality. Maybe, I mean, for instance, this can manifest in that maybe you were at work and, you know, an accident happened and it hurt your physical body and you never got any type of compensation, and you're taking that to the court and now you're actually getting compensated for that. You know, it can manifest in that way, but it can manifest in a million different ways. There's a million of you, okay, babe? But I think it's just a situation where you're ready to really step into your power, step into your confidence, and yeah, own it. It's like you're really owning it. And I've been telling y'all for a hot minute that the truth will set you free. That it's time to really choose you. Choose you. Some of you can be issuing ultimatums, or ultimatums are being issued towards you as well. And ultimately, this is just pivoting you towards, you know, your highest expansion. I feel like there's a lot of pressure to perform, and some of you just might not have the energy to do so. I feel like there's a lot that needs to get done at work, or needs to be addressed in your marriage, or addressed in your public life, and it can feel overwhelming, you know? I definitely see that. And yeah, and it feels like it's like me versus that. Like, you know, maybe it's in the marriage, maybe you feel like it's holding by a string, or you feel like, oh, I don't think that some of these situations that have happened here can be repaired or worked through. or it's going to take a lot of work to work through this situation. Could also be involving, you know, your career, or with an authority figure, or with something that's happened in your public image where you just like, I don't know that I can come back from that, or I feel trapped in this and I want to know how to get out. And some of you might really need to, you know, break significant contracts and might need to get, you know, a legal team to do so. But it does seem like a time where you're just really seeing the truth of situations, and they can be overwhelming and heavy initially, but ultimately it's going to be the best thing for you. And Uranus is going to be moving into Gemini on the 25th of April. And, you know, if you have Gemini placements within the first 5 degrees of Gemini, or the last 5 degrees of Taurus, you'll definitely feel this energy where I think that some of you can choose to be with yourself, or find yourself in a time of isolation, if anything. Or, you know, for some Cancer placements, it can manifest in that things are so overwhelming, and you've taken on way too many responsibilities that you might take a step back and, you know, maybe take some time off, maybe go on a little vacation, especially near the water for some of you. I think that would be very supportive. In fact, it's very supportive for some of you to like take a little mini vacation out of nowhere towards the end of April. I think that could be quite supportive for sure. Some of you could be focusing on your mental health during that period of time and find the support to do so. If you've been working through any type of dependencies or addictions, you know, with all this overwhelm, you could be getting support in that area and working through that. That is supportive. But I definitely urge you all to, you know, allow yourself to make the necessary endings, even if they feel really hard and difficult at first. Because I know that some of you can stay in a level of discomfort for a long time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to. And I think that you're starting to see that it weighs heavily on you, and that it's time for you all to, you know, choose yourselves and choose that beautiful, delicious life that you know that you deserve to live. All right, Leo. With this Aries new moon, a lot of you could be focusing on significant travels, maybe going back to school, maybe changing your belief systems, maybe changing your political beliefs, maybe thinking about what you really want in the long term. So I think that maybe some of you have been lacking confidence in the past. Maybe you've been dealing with that. And I think that this is a period of time where you're really gonna get more confident within yourself and your ability to, you know, be patient enough to create a very beautiful long-term plan for yourself. So I think that that can be significant for some of you. I think that some of you are going to realize that your future plans, or even maybe your belief systems, have been shifting and changing, but maybe they don't align with certain people or certain situations in your life anymore. So I see some of you speaking your truth. Maybe there's been sensitivities around what the truth might be. But for a lot of you, especially if you have Cancer placements, the truth is gonna set you free during this period of time. So I do see some of you making decisions to leave behind maybe a romantic partner, maybe a business partnership, maybe a friendship. Maybe that's going through its own transformations. But I think some of you are at a point where you're like, you know what, life is short, and I really want to make sure that I'm living in alignment with my truth. Maybe some of you are getting more deeply involved with religious practices or spiritual practices, or you're participating more in politics, or maybe you're withdrawing from that area. But maybe it hasn't aligned. Maybe the new version of yourself doesn't align with certain people in your life anymore. On the contrast, where this new moon is falling for you all it could be that you could be going to extremes right now, and that can be causing tension in your relationship. So really find a nice balance with this energy, because it is intense in nature. So certainly watch out for that. I also think that it can be easy to get ahead of yourself at the moment and to, you know, have your blinders on. So I would be thinking about that. I would also be creating a more clear, structured plan if what you're focused on right now is on your long-term plans, maybe significant travels. I would be watching out for, I would just make sure that you have best case scenarios, but also creating a plan B, a plan C. Of course, let's hope for the best alternative, the best outcome. But sometimes there might be things that we weren't expecting to come up in the way. So I do recommend, if some of you are planning to travel or maybe even go back to school, you know, maybe there's some unknowns there, but I would create some type of, you know, backup plan with some of these things. I'm not trying to fearmonger whatsoever, but with these aspects, with this new moon and Chiron and square with Jupiter and Cancer and where that's hitting, it just feels like there can be some uncertainties about the future or about certain plans. Maybe some travel plans get canceled. Maybe you wanted to go to school somewhere, but you didn't get accepted. And it's not going to be the end of the world if that happens, because some of this, for some of you, can feel like, oh no, it's the end of the world type of energy if you were really expecting and looking forward to something. You know, something that comes to mind is I've been on TikTok and I've noticed some influencers have been invited to Coachella by significant brands, and last minute, you know, the day before they hop on that plane, it gets canceled. The brand cancels and drops them, which is highly disappointing. Of course, if you're anticipating such an event, you know, you've been preparing for it for like a month or two, getting your hopes up, and then something happens out of nowhere. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these influencers have Leo's placements, because it can manifest in this type of energy. And I'm not saying that your significant plans are gonna get altered, but understand that we're kind of coming into some unpredictable times. So set your target, get really clear about that, but allow for some readjustments along the way, okay? Expect the best, but allow yourself to be flexible right now. That's really the strongest message that I'm getting here. Now, I do think that some of you could really transform some of your connections right now, or meet the right people. This is a very favorable time to network for some of you. Yeah, definitely a great time to network. Yeah, I just see that a lot of you are gonna be coming into more expansion. I think some of you right now can be planning to move across the world, or planning to move across the country, or just, you know, going somewhere that you haven't before. Some of you are really called to take leaps of faith, and it can be a little stressful in the process. In fact, I feel like there could be a lot of new things going on for some of you. Maybe there's a lot of high expectations for some of you. You feel like you have a lot of pressure on you, and maybe what you're choosing and what you're wanting and what you believe now goes against, you know, things that have always been in balance. So now you feel like you're the initiator of creating that imbalance so that you can recalibrate, and that is completely okay. Some of you will have the tendency to be very opinionated during this period of time, and that can push away other people. So really make sure throughout this process you are finding that nice balance, and there's always nuance to things. Okay? Yeah, there's allow some nuance to flow, allow, you know, there to be some gray areas, because this energy, especially this month, is very black and white for Leo placements in the nature of where it is. It's like very extremist. But this kind of energy really catapults you into the direction that you want to go, because it gives you full optimism and it provides vivid clarity. But you want to keep grounded in this energy. Okay, this is very much like, okay, I'm just ready to go. I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to do it. I'm not going to let anybody stand in my way. I'm going to find my truth. I'm going to find my voice. And that's a beautiful thing. That's an absolute beautiful thing. But don't get swept away in this energy. Keep it grounded. Keep it grounded. And it's okay for you to not know what the outcome is going to be. It's absolutely okay. And I do think, because I think some of you are going to be kept in the dark with some things, and it's really testing your ability to stay patient through the process. Then we have Uranus going in Gemini on April 25th. And how I see this manifesting is, everybody's going to experience this because Uranus is moving into Gemini. It's a very quick moving. Uranus is not that quick moving, but Gemini is like a very quick-witted sign, especially with like communication. So we know that there can be sudden communication that is revealed to us, and it's going to be in conjunct with Venus during this period of time. So I see for y'all, there could be sudden changes in your relationship status, especially if you're coming to truth about certain manners in your relationships, or if you've decided to finally put yourself out there again. I do see quick changes to the relationship status coming online for some of you, sudden shifts and changes in your financial situations as well. And that doesn't have to be bad, okay? So if you've been looking for a new job, or you've been thinking about asking for a raise, because I know during this period of time, truths are going to get exposed, and truths are going to come to light for you all in particular, and you won't be able to hold back how you really feel about situations anymore. So expect sudden communication in your relationships that might, for some of you, feel a little destabilizing in nature. But that destabilization, if that relationship is built on solid foundation, it really shouldn't alter it too much. And in fact, it might create an awakening and create some newness and give it some life if that's what it's been needing. But if you've known for a long time that there's been too many cracks in the foundation and you haven't been able to fix it, then this might be the time that separations happen, because you all are going in a new path where I feel like over the next 6 months, your life and your reality is not going to look the same as it does right now. So Uranus is just giving you that helpful boost to, shake the rest of the debris that is not going to follow you into the future. Or on the contrary, maybe you attract a new relationship overnight. Maybe a friend becomes, a romantic interest to you as well. That's absolutely possible. And this doesn't even have to be about romance. This could also be your finances shifting and changing overnight. Or you meet somebody significant, you make a new friend who's going to be really important and close with you over the future months. So, this is it's exciting energy. It really brings in a lot of newness when Uranus is going into Gemini. It is abrupt. and it is a little disrupting, I will say. And especially because we have Jupiter and square with Mercury, Mars, and Saturn in Aries during this period of time. So some of you can feel left in the dark. Some of you could also feel, if you have abandonment wounds, those could likely activate during this period of time. If you have struggled with addiction in the past, that could come up for you to, settle. I'm not, predicting anything bad for anybody. It's just a period of time where you're breaking through perceived limitations from the past that have held you back. It's like literally you evaluating situations from the past. Maybe people from the past come back up right now, or situations that have played out in the past are repeating themselves right now. So you can be like, I'm not bringing that with me into the future. So that's really what it is. Now I do see if some of you are traveling, maybe by plane, and expect some delays for some of you. You know, if you're buying plane tickets right now, or if you're booking travel plans, I would have some backup plans just in case. I'm not saying anything bad's gonna happen. But with this energy, you just wanna make sure that, you know, you're prepared in case unforeseen, you know, events were to take place, you know? So it's just as simple as booking insurance on your flight, or making sure that you have enough in your bank account when you're traveling so that you can rent a car if you need to, or stay an extra couple days in case your flight gets canceled. You know, those types of things. So, you know, look into that. I also see that there can be tension I just feel like there will be a little bit of tension with other people in your environment that you might just want to give some space in those connections and allow these connections to change and transform, and don't really push it. Okay, some of you can be initiating distance, or they're initiating distance with you. Maybe you feel a lot of pressure from other people right now, or you don't feel respected from other people right now. And if I were you, I would just really focus on what you're wanting in the long term, and, you know, regulating your emotions through this type of energy, because there will be the tendency to want to argue. There will be the tendency to want to make a big, massive exit, but sometimes it's, you know, better to stabilize before we react to these types of situations. All right, Virgo. I feel like with this Aries new moon, you're being asked to release significant things. And a lot of you have been having wounds around, you know, needing to control situations and outcomes, or, you know, indebtedness. Maybe there's been significant debts that you've been trying to pay off. Maybe there's significant contracts that you've been trying to release yourself from. Maybe you feel significant obligations and ties to other people, and you've been trying to work through that. And this new moon in Aries is really highlighting that, where it's like, hey, it's time to fully integrate these lessons right now. So I just see a lot of deep releases for you over the next 6 months, and that doesn't have to be a bad thing. In fact, it's like a very purifying energy, where it's like, you know, in the process, if you are gripping onto it so strongly and tightly, even though you know it's time to let it go, or let these circumstances go, it's going to be kind of painful. But if you know it's time to let it go and you willingly do it, it can be a very clean cut, and you just feel so much relief afterwards. It's kind of like if you have, I don't know, say you have like a significant thing that happened on your body, like maybe there's like a significant sore or something, and the only way to relieve it of pain is by, like, you know, doing some work on it, and it might sting, it might burn, you might not want it to happen at all. You're scared of, you know, feeling all that pain that's gonna surface. But as soon as you know, do it and you release all of that pressure, you feel so much better afterwards. So I think it's like those types of situations. But it could also be that maybe you're breaking a lease, or you're signing a new lease. Maybe you're getting into a new contract that will be beneficial for you. You know, like say you're a recording artist and a label wants to sign you. This is the type of energy that would come about with that. But it doesn't have to be. But I just think that it's kind of a death and rebirth process for you. And yeah, there is a mild feeling of letting go of control. And I feel like for some of you, your daily routines, maybe your health could be significant. And that's going through some type of transformation, and you're being forced to look into that. Maybe some of you are having to take out loans or pick up a credit card so that you can, you know, do certain health procedures that will be transformative for you. And I think that circumstances are happening out of nowhere, where you're just having to readjust, and let that be okay. Some of you might need to be leaning on other people right now financially, and it's okay to ask for help. Absolutely. But I think for some of you, you might even be cut off financially, if that's resonant. Because it's time for you to, cut these contracts that are not beneficial for you any longer. Maybe you're cutting off other people financially as well, because I feel like with Virgo placements, there's this internal mechanism that just keeps some of you on a loop where you overextend yourself or you offer these things, but you don't really want to do it. It's just kind of like something that is on autopilot. So some of you can be getting yourself out of this because maybe you're noticing that it's starting to impact your health. Maybe you overextending or you sharing your resources to some capacity, or you going into debt to some capacity is really hurting your health. It's impacting your daily routine. You're finding that it's not the best habit for you anymore. So allow yourself to really cleanse yourself of these things. Okay. Now, for some of you, there can be situations around like sex that can come up. I know. But I felt called to say some of these things. I would be wearing protection around this period of time for sure, just because the way that all these Aries placements are aspecting the square with Pluto and Aquarius for you all. So just make sure that you're being smart and safe in that area, because I can see for some of you that it could manifest in those situations, or maybe you thought that you've taken care of something in that regard and it's surfacing so that you can really work through deeper layers in that area. Okay. Or maybe this could also be an indication that you're creating boundaries around, sexual topics. You're creating boundaries around those types of situations. Maybe that's something that's calling to you, or some of you really want to step into that, really express yourself in those ways. So, don't be afraid to confront those aspects that are coming up. You know what I'm saying? I just felt called to say that for some of you. So then we have Uranus going into Gemini on April 25th, and everybody's going to feel this, okay? It's pretty... Uranus is kind of loud, quick, and awakening. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of awakenings going on. And for y'all, I think that there can be sudden shifts in your careers or within your marriage or in your public life. Because this, when Uranus is entering Gemini, it's going to be in close orb with Venus. And so there can be sudden shifts in, relationship statuses, sudden shifts in financial matters. Okay. And I feel like finances can be significant for some of you, especially if there's shared resources involved. So therefore, say you're going through a divorce, these types of transits can indicate that maybe there's a verdict on who gets to keep what. Or this is like whenever you start initiating, like, I want a separation. I want to keep the house. Those types of things. Yeah. I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just, communicating this astrological language the best that I can. And for a lot of you, you've just been like really releasing the patterns around trying to control circumstances and control outcomes. But I think some of you are ready to really release that pattern if you resonate with that. I do see with around the 25th, Jupiter is going to be in square with Mercury, Mars, Saturn, and Aries. And this does look like things can happen out of nowhere when you're not expecting them. Some of you could also have maybe a friend or somebody in your community reach out to you, trying to get you to help them or assist them to some capacity. Or you might receive sudden truths that can feel shocking in nature, maybe from a friend or someone significant to you. So make sure that you're really regulating your nervous system throughout this energy that's coming up, because if you've been gripping too tightly on an old reality that it's time to collapse, this is the time when it's really gonna force a collapse, okay? But if you've been allowing things to be released, if you've been paying off your debts, if you've been, you know, prioritizing your boundaries and really living in your fullest truth and expression, then this is just kind of removing the final layers so that you can really step into that juicy, gorgeous, magnetic existence. Okay. So, I mean, I'm just, you know, seeing that there's a lot of deep transformations that y'all are going to be going in over the next 6 months. This is also energy where some of you are like, I'm going to pay off all my debts. I'm going to be debt free. Or I'm going to finally get that divorce and separate myself because I can't do it anymore. Or I'm going to set super strong boundaries so that I stop overextending myself and taking from my own cup when I don't have it. Or I'm going to be so truthful with those in my life because I need to be honest and truthful with myself. Yeah, it's very much that kind of energy. All right, Libra, I feel like a lot of you are feeling overwhelmed with a lot of responsibility, or there could be a lot of pressure on you. Some of you might even feel like people are disrespecting your boundaries. There can be a lot of defensive energy that's been with you through the first part of April. And with this new moon in Aries on the 17th, I see that maybe some of you are healing your relationships with give and take, with boundaries, with relationships in your life. Yeah, some of you can even be entering into a new relationship over the next 6 months, or you could be working on healing some relationships from the past during this period of time as well. I think that there's been some deep sensitivities around how you express yourself with other individuals, and they don't just have to be in a romantic nature. Some of these things can be friends, they can be clients, they can be business partners, they can be roommates, they can be coworkers. There are all sorts of relationships, even the relationship with yourself. So I feel like there's a lot of healing going on in that area. And if it's not another person, then maybe it can be like your relationship with things. You know, we have a relationship literally with everything. So, you know, be aware of these circumstances and try not to overthink during this period of time. I do think that some of you are wanting more significant, deeper connection than, you know, fleeting energy or fleeting energy. You want something that's going to be more authentic with you. Some of you could be holding back how you really feel about things, though, with other people, because this new moon is on Chiron and it's in square with Pluto. So significant truths can get revealed in your relationships right now, where if you feel like you've been putting on a performance or you've been inauthentic, you know, now's the time where those types of situations could possibly be revealed. They can possibly be revealed. And I think some of you are also realizing some of you might not want casual anymore. Some of you might not want that casualness. I think some of you could even be experiencing some difficult conversations with other people, or where you feel like you have no choice but to confront certain matters, or maybe they're confronting you to some capacity. And that could be touching on some maybe old wounds that you have dealing with others. Maybe there's a lack of fairness that's coming up. And some of you, it'll be very easy to get in your ego or for your pride to take a hit as well. So watch out for that. I think the more that you're being authentic and you're not going into your people-pleasing tendencies or your avoidant tendencies, I think the easier some things can get cleared up and you can really find a nice balance. Like, do you hear that siren? I feel like there's like some pressing matters, or there's just a lot of stuff that's weighing on you, maybe in regard to other people or in regard to certain contracts or agreements or whatever it is. And maybe it's time to stand up for yourself, or for you to address the elephants in the room. Okay. I certainly see that for some of you. Yeah. I'm thinking with this energy, it's just reading, the more that you're getting deeper about things, the more that you're allowing situations to transform. I think the easier it's going to be for you. And bring back in that funness and that lighthearted energy as well. Maybe you've gotten a little too serious, or you feel just like a lot of pressure on you. And you might be saying things or doing things that you don't mean. Maybe because I just feel like a lot of pressure for some of you. Like it just feels like a lot of weight. Maybe there's some like discipline going on in your relationships, or maybe work is tiring, or there's a lot of pressure for you to perform at work. Some of you might even be considering initiating separations or departures from significant people in your life as well. And instead of doing the Libra slow fade, walking away silently, some of you feel like, I need to respect the situation a little bit more. So I don't know. I mean, there's a million of you. It can manifest a million different ways, but overall, this energy definitely reads as heaviness or a lot of responsibilities, a lot of overwhelm are impacting your relationships and maybe causing some uneasiness with some of you. Maybe there's some unagreeability at work right now, or you don't feel like you're being respected to some regard. And it's time to confront those situations. And then Uranus is going to go into Gemini on April 25th. And for a lot of you, you could be speaking significant truths out of nowhere, really finding your voice to say the things that you've been wanting to say. And Uranus is going in Gemini, and it's going to be in close conjunct with Venus. So I see there is an energy about this where if you're speaking your truths to other people, then there's some agreeability here. It just feels like a little bit of softening for the landing if you're wanting to relay some news to some capacity. Some of you could also go on a spontaneous trip that can, really clear out some of this heavy energy as well. In fact, if you've been overworking yourself, this is definitely the type of energy that's like, hey, let me go on a little vacation. Let me take a little drive across town or to a couple towns over for the weekend. I think that can really help alleviate some stress and tension for some of you, because some of you are just like in the line of fire. You have to deal with it. It's like, some of your deepest insecurities or your deepest wounds can be heavily activated right now, and that can cause, a lot of stress and tension for anybody. So I think around Uranus going into Gemini on the 25th, if you've been planning a little vacation or a little trip, that might be nice. That might be nice. Because I do see some of you need to implement a little bit more fun into your routine right now. Okay? I am seeing that. Yeah, I think that there's confrontations that are happening in relationships or dealings with others, or in certain contracts that you're in. Maybe there's like some reworking that needs to be done, and it's just tiring. It's just tiring. Or you feel like you're not being met with the same level of respect, being met with the same level of reciprocation. So it just has you, reevaluating if this is even worth it. Is this even worth it? But I think the more that you can stand in your truth and your authenticity during this period of time, while also allowing yourself to see things from a grand perspective. If you are authentic with yourself and those around you in this moment, how is this going to impact the long term? Are you going to keep denying yourself? Are you going to keep, letting things build up and then you slip into avoidance? Are you going to keep allowing disrespectful behavior? Because some of you just need to learn how to voice these things. And I think that this is going to be a period of time where you're really initiating these things. You're really talking through these things. You're letting go of people-pleasing qualities if you resonate with that. And, you're really stepping into your autonomy. All right, Scorpio, I feel like over the next 6 months, a lot of you are going to be working on you know, building a nice solid routine for yourself, building more structure in your life. Even some of you could be working on your health. Health could be coming up, and some of you are also setting stronger boundaries as well. And I feel like for some of you, that's been a deep wound or something that you've been working through for a little while, as this new moon is sitting on Chiron, our deepest wounds. So maybe there's certain things that have been out of your control, or, you know, your routine has been severely disrupted, and that's impacting your health to some capacity. And as a result, maybe boundaries have been needed, you know, to be set. Maybe there's also some insecurities happening at work as well, or maybe you've been asked to take on more hours, and that can be impacting your health, and that can be impacting your routine, because maybe you're not being super respected and at work with your work schedule or your work routine, you know, especially if you have Libra placements with some of the things that are going on in Libra's chart. So I feel like a lot of that is going to be going through reconstruction over the next 6 months. And that's honestly exciting. I think that some of you could be taking work home right now, or work can be getting in the way of your relationships. That doesn't have to apply to all of you. In fact, some of you, maybe being at home, there can be sudden disruptions in your routines. Maybe it can be something as simple as, you know, your own house is getting worked on, and that's, you know, really throwing you off. And maybe you've found mold in your house, and that's been impacting your health. Or, you know, you're working on your relationship with your family. Maybe there's some health stuff going on with the family. There's a million of you. It can manifest in a million different ways. But I do think that there can be some type of rigidity happening at home, or within your personal relationships, or with certain family members, or, you know, you're having to stay home more because health issues can be overwhelming to deal with, you know, all of these things. Or maybe you're not ever home because you're working so much, you know. But I do think that maybe your health and work can be getting in the way of your long-term future. Maybe listen, this energy is just kind of annoying energy. Not that you're annoying, but where this new moon in Aries is in, it's a beautiful energy to be in whenever you really need to get stuff done, and you really need to create more structure to yourself, because it will certainly show you the nitpicky details of what needs to get done. You know, it's hard work. It's like Princess and the Pea syndrome, you know, like how that tale where she has so many mattresses and she feels that one little pea underneath all of those mattresses. This is the kind of energy that it is. It's like, if there's something going on with your health, it's just going to keep bugging you until you finally do something about it. If your routine is completely out of whack, then you're like, I need to do everything in my power to get it back on track. If something's going on at work, or in a personal relationship, or at home, something needs to be done about it. Okay? There can also be, you know, annoyances with certain paperwork in terms of your home or like family. It's like, I mean, where this is transiting, it's like the house of chores and indentured servitude. And I mean, I can't lie. It can be frustrating. This energy right here can be frustrating, because you feel like there's so much stuff you got to do to prepare for the future, to set yourself up for success. Because this also, you know, it's in square with Jupiter, in an area where some of you see that there's a deadline and there's just so much stuff to do, or your health is getting in the way from doing it. Like for me, I'm a Scorpio moon, and I resonate with this heavily. I'm about to move across the country in literally 2 days, and I'm celiac, and I accidentally ate cake with wheat flour. I thought it was gluten-free, and I've got so much to do. I've got to pack up the rest of my room. I've got to work on my business. I've got to tie up some loose ends in the next day while I'm dealing with this autoimmune disease. So it's just like both my health and my routines getting disrupted significantly. So it's just very annoying energy to deal with, okay? That's how it's manifesting for me. You know, how is it manifesting for you all? Now, that's all to say that this is really beautiful energy to also be in and to integrate. Because, you know, I think that whatever you're going through right now, that might feel nitpicky, that might feel annoying, that might feel like, you know, you're really busy, you're working really hard, that it's really gonna bring more balance into your life. It's really gonna, you know, create that nice steady balance, even if you don't see it in the moment. Yeah, that's kind of why it's here. It's also here to really harmonize maybe your relationships, or, you know, forcing you to create a better relationship with your home, or forcing you to create a better relationship with certain family members. It's just nitpicky energy that shows us where we've been out of alignment and how to get more structured and grounded. And then we have Uranus going into Gemini on April 25th. And I see that for y'all, there can be sudden endings that happen during that time, or sudden beginnings. Maybe sudden contracts also get signed around that period of time as well. But Uranus is going to be in close conjunct with Venus during this period of time. And, you know, Venus is relationships. It can also signify money. And they don't have to be romantic relationships. But for some of you, you could be going through, if you've been working really hard on a certain relationship, this might be a period of time where you come to certain conclusions if you want to move forward with that connection or not. Uranus is a new energy. Uranus brings a very new energy, especially in Gemini. And Gemini is, you know, the planet of communication. So you could be literally communicating that I need to cut this off, or I need a new way of dealing with these things. Some of you might even realize that you've been overworking yourself, and maybe you don't find that it's worth it. Maybe you find that, like, it's time for me to get a new job. I see over the next 6 months, if you want to expand into a new job or a new role, that's absolutely available to you. So this might be the time where you're really initiating that change and that step. So you're like, you know what? I've been overworking myself. I need to create stronger boundaries with myself. So I might be, you know, taking on less hours, or I might be quitting this job because maybe it doesn't respect me anymore. And I'm willing to, you know, maybe break my contract at work as a result. Or if I have someone in my life that can financially support me for a period of time, I might let that happen. Or if you have other means of creating and generating income while you take a step back, that's also possible. Yeah. I feel like some of you just really want to make something work, but you know in the long term it's just not going to be efficient for you. And that's really what it is. It's like y'all are just seeing what's not efficient for you in the long term. So therefore, some of you feel like you have to really overcorrect. And you don't feel, it's kind of like, you know, whenever you're in a plane and you see how beautiful like the shapes and the structures and the texture of the earth is, but you're not up close and personal seeing like the people. Like you might see them and they look like little ants, but you're not like seeing their faces and experiencing what it's like to be in that location. You're just kind of have a higher perspective of it. And that's this kind of energy, but you all are so ingrained in it and you're so like in it that it can be hard for you to see the whole purpose of why you're doing it, you know? So maybe you've had to work really hard because you need to move, but now you're kind of getting to the nitpickiness of it and you're totally drained and you're asking yourself, why am I doing this again? Why am I doing this again? I don't feel the results. You know, it can be really like that. So it can be discouraging to be in this energy because maybe you've lost perspective. You've lost the big picture, you know? Start looking at things from a broader perspective rather than getting so zoomed into like the little tiny things. Like for me as a Scorpio moon, I'm about to move to like one of the most beautiful, gorgeous areas in America and just begin my new life and start a really beautiful new chapter. But all the things that I've been having to deal with the past couple of weeks, I'm just so exhausted and anxious that I can't, it's been hard to tap into those exciting feelings that's to come. I've like lost the perspective because it's so easy to get, you know, dragged into the nitty-gritty, annoying things, you know, that come with health, that come with, you know, the logistics of everything, to come into, you know, creating consistency and creating that routine, you know, and the annoying things that come up with that, all that unnecessary paperwork, or, you know, I feel like a lot of you are experiencing this type of energy where it's like, I gotta get this done, I gotta cancel that, I gotta do that, I gotta do that, on top of this, on top of this, on top of this, I'm not getting any sleep, this is disrupting my relationships, there's a lot of uncertainty, and I really need to get this done, and this done, and this done. It's a busy energy. It's a busy energy, and it's gonna be so easy for some of you to get a little emotionally, you know, unregulated. So take your time. I'm really seeing with this chart, the more that you're giving yourself some space and relaxing and getting vulnerable and creating comfort for yourself during this process, I think the easier it's going to be. Also, if you're able to rely on another person right now, financially, or whatever it is that you need, do not be afraid to reach out. All right, Sagittarius, I think over the next 6 months, some of you could be expanding into a new romance if that's something that you're wanting, but that's not going to be applicable to everybody. I think for some of you, you could be beginning a new creative project that's really beautiful, that's really going to, you know, light you up. Especially, you know, if you're a musician, if you're an artist, you don't even have to be any of that either. Maybe you're creating content, you know, for apps like this, or maybe even on YouTube. That could be really beautiful for some of you. So I see new creative projects really, you know, coming on in the works. Some of you could also be really thinking about children over the next 6 months. Some of you could be planning to do that, having a child. That could be resonant. I think some of you are also healing aspects of yourself, you know, really focusing on yourself and your passions. Just having more fun, you know, bringing more joy and happiness and pleasure into your life. I feel like that's really gonna, you know, light some of you up, really choosing yourself and choosing your path, choosing your authenticity. Some of you could even be, you know, more confident. You're really working on your sense, your confidence, your self-worth as well. You know, really putting yourself out there. Because maybe some of you have been a little discouraged, or, you know, focusing on more personal matters, getting more vulnerable in situations, you know, working on, you know, the home life, or with stuff with the family. You know, so maybe there's been more like downtime or more quiet time, but now you're coming into a time where you're like, I'm really ready to express myself. So you're finding new ways to express yourself, where maybe you haven't been so confident about in the past, or maybe you've gotten in your ego, or, you know, you've let your pride get in the way. I think some of you are really healing that and stepping up and stepping out. And that's a beautiful way to be. I think some of you are getting your sense of humor back. And I love Sagittarius, one of my favorite, you know, placements. I think that you all are so funny. You know, some of you just have like the most immaculate sense of humor. And I think that's coming back online for some of you if you've, you know, kind of been down or haven't been stepping into that, or you've been more quiet. So I see more fun. I see more fun. I see more laughter. I see more, you know, you all feel like you're finally on again. It's kind of that energy where if you've been stagnant and you haven't really been feeling like yourself, this is a period of time where you're going to find yourself again. And you're really going to express yourself. Yeah, I feel like some of you just have been either in a level of solitude, or, you know, haven't been feeling up to it, and now you're like, you know what, I am feeling up to it. You know, if it's been a period of time where you've just been at home all the time and, you know, lost your zest, this is the time where you're picking that zest back up. Okay, I don't know, this is a really gorgeous energy. I will say that it can be really easy to get into the ego with this energy, because we've got a lot of Aries, a big Aries pile up right now, and it is sitting in an area of the chart where it's easy to get let you get in your ego, let pride get in the way, you know, act from a place of performance. So watch out for that, because it can also be easy to get into arguments. So I would just take a step back and focus on you. Focus on you rather than, you know, getting into little petty arguments right now. Because there can also be drama that's unfolding as well in some of your lives. Maybe people are trying to start drama with you, or you feel, you know, you're getting pulled back into that if you know you run those patterns, or you know that, you know, that seems to find you sometimes. So really try your best not to engage with it, because that pattern will get really magnified right now. And the best way that you can break that pattern is to act like it doesn't exist. Be like, yeah, they're trying to rage bait me. They're trying to get me involved in whatever this is, but I'm above it. And I'm going to focus on my joy and my expression. And I'm just going to walk away from that pattern. I'm not going to do it anymore, you know? So really congratulate yourself that that pattern is finally getting released, you know, if you resonate with that. I do think that with Uranus going into Gemini on April 25th, some of you can be, I feel like some of you could be ending a relationship out of nowhere around that period of time, or some of you can be getting into a new relationship quickly around that time. That's not going to resonate with everybody, but you know, if you've been wanting to put yourself out there, then I definitely see that like a new connection can come in, or maybe you're finally ready to be like, you know what, let's go ahead and make this official, if you've been entertaining somebody on a lighthearted note, because Uranus is going to Gemini in that area of partnerships. But it doesn't even have to be romantic. Maybe you meet somebody who's gonna be a really good friend or a really good connection to help you create new things going forward, okay? So if that's resonant, I see that that's supportive, especially if you've been wanting to expand into community, if you've been wanting, you know, a new friend, if you're moving, if you've been in the process of moving, it's possible that you meet someone who's going to be a really good fit to live with. Now watch out for wanting to end situations over matters of, you know, the ego or, you know, your pride. That is something that can get highlighted during this period of time. And, you know, watch how you express yourself at the moment. If you know that sometimes you can get in the ego, or, you know, you need to be right about a situation, just observe that, because I think people are getting really defensive in this Aries energy. It's really easy, especially when people aren't, you know, practicing self-awareness. So just ask yourself, is this a conversation that I want to be engaging in right now? Is this a situation where I need to take a step back before I react, before I end something that, you know, is meaningful to me, just because I'm feeling the heat of the moment? Because all of this energy is very much heat of the moment, and where all of this is happening in your chart is like, if you're prone to attracting some type of drama, or you're prone to, you know, getting in the ego to some capacity, this can get activated. So take a step back before you react in this energy. And I recommend that to anybody. This is very reactive energy. So just take it easy. I do think that this is a great time for a lot of you to network. But just don't be engaging in arguments or, you know, getting too critical, because I know that y'all are truth seekers and you can be blunt and you love to, you know, speak your truth. But I feel like sometimes there's a time and place to do that. And this chart's kind of communicating that, you know, be a little bit more intentional with your communication right now. Because the more intentional that you can be, the more harmonious that you can be, the more that you can, you know, kind of see from both perspectives and give yourself some space before you react. I see a lot of beautiful things that can happen for you. This is a great time for some of you to be networking, meeting business connections. I see that if, you know, you're a business owner, you can be bringing in more clients, or if you've been wanting to, you know, expand your outreach, I see that can be a really beautiful thing for you. So just, you know, watch how you're communicating and what your needs are. Okay. All right, Capricorn, let's get into it. I feel like over the next 6 months, some of you are going to be moving into a new home, or maybe even starting a family, or you're going to be getting closer to your family to some capacity, or really improving your relationships and working through being more vulnerable. Yeah. I do think that some of you are working on creating stronger boundaries in your relationships, or maybe you're even learning to soften some of those to some capacity, because there is a difference between setting strong boundaries, which I think are essential with anybody, but also putting up walls. So if you know that you've been prone to creating walls in your relationships, or, you know, matters at home, then this is a time where that's getting pronounced. Some of you, there can also be scarcity mindsets. Some of you could also be a little fearful that you're not going to be able to afford a significant move, or maybe there's situations that are happening in the household. If you have Scorpio placements, this can be resonant, where maybe there's things that are happening at home that need to be worked on, but you don't feel like you can afford that right now. So then you might need to take out a loan in order to do so. You know, maybe you found mold, you know, black mold in the basement, and that's impacting your health, and now you've got to come up with some money to get that taken care of. You know, and that would cause some type of instability at home. There's a million of you. It's going to manifest in a million different ways, but that's just one example. But yeah, it does feel like the home life or personal relationships or family members can feel a little unstable, or maybe you're even noticing certain transactional patterns happening in your relationships too. I also think that there can be tension in relating with others right now. Maybe there's some disagreements that, you know, you feel like you need to maybe be a little bit more vulnerable about, or you're stronger in your emotions than you thought that you would be. So you could be like processing some of that to some capacity. And from what I'm seeing is, I think the more that you can be being more authentic, but seeing things in a more lighthearted manner, because some of you might not be allowing yourself to have fun, or you might be seeing things through an emotionally charged lens right now. And I think the more that you can laugh about some of these situations, I think the easier of a time that you can have. Okay, and the more that you can be authentic and really strip away a mask with these connections or these situations that are happening. Maybe some of these situations are a little stressful in nature, you know? But I think the more that you can have fun with it and be vulnerable, I think that could be a beautiful thing for you. And then we have Uranus going into Gemini on the 25th of April. And this is happening in an area of health, daily routine, creating structure, you know, creating better habits for ourselves. And it's going to be in close conjunct with Venus. So I already see this as a transit where relationships can change overnight. That doesn't have to be a bad thing at all. I think that some of you might choose to work through something with another person if there's tension to some capacity. Some of you could also be thinking about changing your job, maybe quitting a job or expanding into a new career to some capacity. That can be resonant. Or some of you might discover sudden things around your health if you've been having underlying health issues. You can meet the right people who lead you to those discoveries, or you can receive money or assistance that's going to help you, dive further into that if money's been a sore spot for some of you. I feel like there can be some support there. Yeah, I definitely see some support coming online financially if that's something that you need. Some of you might even be picking up like a second job or a second income stream so that you can, pay for necessary things that you've been wanting to do, or, to get you feeling more stable. Yeah. I just think that a lot of you are working on your communication around your feelings and your emotions with other people. And, that's been something that I think some of you have been working through for a while. I think that's been some sore spots for some of you. Maybe being vulnerable, or something within the family, or a close personal relationship, or, your physical house. I feel like there's been tension there. And now it's like that type of thing is really coming to a head. So some of you are reevaluating your relationships. Some of you are processing emotions that maybe you haven't allowed yourself to process in the past, because we can't avoid them, we can't escape them. So let yourself feel through the process. And, don't let a scarcity mindset or a rigid mindset, prevent this process from happening. And I think some of you, it's easy to, especially whenever all these planets start kind of going into Taurus, I think that's whenever y'all are going to really start having more fun and being more expressive. I think right now it's more of an internal process. So if you're tired of, you're like, I don't want to be in this process anymore. I don't feel like things are moving forward. I feel like I just have to keep working on, things that are coming up in my own emotional world right now, or things keep coming up at home and I have to deal with that. Allow yourself to be in this space, because some of you might really want to push forward, but you're still being asked to do some inner work right now, if that's resonant. And, you can really sit with it, process it, work through it, deal with maybe having more downtime than normal. I don't know how it's manifesting for some of you. And I think that the more that you're being consistent and you're showing up for yourself, the more stable you're gonna feel. All right, Aquarius. This Aries New Moon is gonna be sitting in an area of communication, the way that you think, siblings, neighbors, relatives, transportation. If I were you, I would certainly be paying attention to, your car right now. Does it need maintenance? Where are you driving? Are you prone to road rage? I feel like I've been saying this to Aquarius placements for a minute, but this is kind of happening in an area of that, and square with Pluto that's in your sign. This new moon in Aries is in square with Pluto in your sign. So especially if you have, placements within the first 5 to 10 degrees of Aquarius, planets or angles, then you're really going to be feeling this, where, there's a lot of deep transformations that are already going on in your life, maybe upheavals or sudden endings. I'm not sure what it is, but things can feel a little intense in nature, especially with all this Aries energy. Aries is rude, Aries is blunt, but it's also really fresh and new. So a lot of newness is coming online for a lot of people at a very quick, rapid pace. And for y'all, this is a very quick, rapid pace, where some of you just might even experience burnout quickly, or you feel like there's so much that you need to do, but your physical body can't keep up with it. So really allow yourself to, it is a fun energy. It's totally a fun energy, so have fun with it. but make sure that you're staying true to yourself and, you know, drawing necessary limits that need to be had. You know, if you don't feel like you can keep up with all this stuff that's changing and happening, because it is a very changing energy. A lot of stuff is going to be changing for a lot of people this month, especially with Uranus going in Gemini on the 25th. So, you know, don't burn out. Some of you can react quickly and self-sabotage. If you run self-sabotage patterns, just be conscious of this energy. Some of you, like I said, if your check engine light's coming on and you know that you need a little bit of a drive, I would get that checked out. I just wouldn't be taking risks with your car right now. For some of you, this can directly translate to, you know, car accidents on your way to work or running your daily routines. And I'm not predicting a car accident for anybody, but I am saying if you know you're prone to road rage, or, you know, you're getting a feeling that day that maybe I should avoid taking that route, you know, listen to your intuition right now and don't try to rush things. And I totally believe in the burnt toast theory, where like if, you know, something is delaying you to some capacity and you're getting somewhere late, maybe it was for a reason. So just try not to give into impatience right now, because there will be the tendency for some of you to want to rush things. Maybe you know, say things in the heat of a moment and you regret saying them. And also don't disregard your health right now. I'm not predicting health issues, of course. I feel like some of you've been working through some of that, some capacity in general, or, you know, adjusting your habits or your daily routines. I think that there can be disruptions to daily routines right now. So just try not to get frustrated. Try not to like react to the situations that are happening. Some of you, if you have siblings, there can be maybe some conversations that are being had right now. So try to approach them from a place of, you know, more emotional understanding, if you know what I mean. I think the more that you're being more empathetic and, I guess, caring in this energy, the easier it's gonna be for you, or the more that you're lying low right now, I think that could be beneficial for you as well. I'm not saying that you need to like be a hermit, because I know with this energy, it's like you're busy. You got a lot going on. You got a lot to do. There's a lot of newness that's happening and reality's moving faster than you can keep up with. But I think finding a nice balance and really establishing a solid routine right now would benefit you significantly. Because then we also have Uranus and Gemini on April 25th. And this is happening in an area for you all around. Yeah, like I do kind of see that this is a pivotal moment for some relationships, not just romantic. I see it beneficial in meeting new connections that are going to be significant for us going forward. But some of us could also be initiating endings so that we can move along our path. Okay, so some of you might feel the urge to do that. Maybe some of you don't feel like certain situations are working anymore. Maybe you feel like you have to keep like talking through things, working on things, and you're just tired of it. You want something new. But understand that all this Aries energy is in an area of your chart that's really focused on the day-to-day stuff. And it's just focused on what's happening right now and not really focused on the big picture of things. So take a step back before you react to your environment and start getting like really critical about everything and wanting to change your life overnight. It's kind of this energy. Take a step back and really think through things before you react to them. All this Aries energy, it's very, very reactive, and some of y'all, it'll be easy to run your mouths with where it is. So yeah, make sure that you're being intentional with your words right now. This is definitely a great energy for some of you if you've been wanting to write a book or start like initiating new things. you've been wanting more energy to get things done, this is great energy to thrive in. Absolutely. But you need to be more structured about it, and you know, not go all willy-nilly or, you know, become ungrounded, because there's the tendency to get a little ungrounded in this energy. I definitely see that if you've been stagnant and focusing on the day-to-day stuff, you know, life's been a little bit boring or it's been meticulous, you're starting to see things move forward. You're definitely starting to see things move forward. And that's beautiful, but just take it nice, slow, and easy, because it'll be really easy to get burnt out in this type of energy. All right, Pisces. This Aries new moon is going to happen in an area of your finances, but also your values, your boundaries, and your sense of stability. So I see that over the next 6 months, some of you can be going through significant financial shifts and breakthroughs. Some of you can be creating more stability in your life and just really focusing on that. And I feel like that's been a sore spot or a wound that some of you have been really working through. And I get a lot of you all in my comments saying, like, I've been working on this for months now, and I'm really proud of myself where I've gotten myself. And you really should be proud of yourself, because I feel like a lot of you are finally at that phase where you're like, I really trust myself to create those boundaries. I really trust myself to stick to my values. I really trust myself to, you know, build financial security. You know, some of you have really come a long way in that, or some of you really are trying to master that area of life. You've been called to do it. So yeah, really pat yourself on the back, babe. I think that's really beautiful. There can be the tendency right now, you're going to get tested around your boundaries, or around, you know, deceptive behaviors, maybe from other individuals, maybe from past romantic relationships. There can also be the tendency to get in the ego right now, or attract people who are in their ego, and they're going to try to test your boundaries. So, you know, don't take the bait. And if you've been working hard on your finances, if you've been working hard on your financial resources, creating boundaries and security for yourself, some of you might want to revert into old habits that might not be the best for you, if you know that you're prone to do that. So don't take the bait. Choose stability right now. Choose stability. Some of you could even get a little impatient right now about like financial matters, or things that you thought were solid or you've been working really hard towards. It might not feel like things are coming through or things are happening. But I am really seeing this as the more that you're keeping consistent, the better the payoff is going to be. And I'm seeing the more that you can hold your boundaries and stick true to your value systems, the better you're going to like your results, especially in the long term. And then we've got Uranus going into Gemini on April 25th. And I'm seeing this as, because Uranus is going to be in close conjunct with Venus. So significant changes can happen in your relationships overnight. It doesn't have to be in a bad way, and it doesn't have to be romantic. In fact, I think a lot of newness is coming online pretty quickly. Some of you maybe you've been saving up to move. Or, you know, you've been really working on your values and boundaries in your relationships. And so, you know, new relationships are coming online as a result, or there's a renewness in your current relationships. Hazy wants to say, hi, this is going to be the last video that I record with her because I'm moving away. And I think some of you might be moving all of a sudden, late April. That is supportive. And if you're worried about the financial situations, I think that you could receive help, or there's, you know, some type of support there. Yeah. I am seeing that maybe relationships have been a little, not tough, but maybe you haven't had time for them, or you've had to like set stronger boundaries in them. But I'm just seeing, as we're approaching more Gemini energy later in the month, that there's the ability to, you know, work through some stuff, or maybe have some forgiveness over situations in the past. Maybe get a little bit more vulnerable, get a little bit more open about things, allowing things to transform. Maybe if some of you've had, you know, certain habits that haven't been the best for you, maybe you are being vulnerable and like talking through those things, or you're sharing your own experiences with others that might be dealing with those things. I think some of you could be like getting help, or you could be helping other people that need it at the moment. But I just see like a lot of love coming online, not necessarily romantic. A lot of this reads as personal relationships, just healing and transforming. And I think that that's a really beautiful thing. And if you've been like not feeling like you've had a stable home, or you haven't had like a stable relationship with people in your life, I see a lot of that, yeah, going through significant healing right now. Now, some of you, especially coming in the Taurus season, it can be easy to react to situations that you don't really know the truth of. So I just wouldn't react if you know that you don't have all the information. So be careful with that. And I also just wouldn't be getting into the car with anybody who's been drinking, or on anything that, you know, slightly alters the state of consciousness either. And that's not to scare anybody. But you know, you just, with this energy that's in the chart right now, I wouldn't mess with that in general ever. But you know, use your judgment with those things.